Hello. I turn it over to my friend and host of the program, Sister Munirah.
Okay. All right. So good evening. And as I was talking to Mr. Alexander about, we're going to talk about mental health and friends tonight, right? Our need for each other, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is a essential aspect of how we live, move, and have our being in the world, right?
Yes.
You hear a lot of people talk about, oh, I don't need anybody. I can do it myself. I'd rather be alone. But when we boil it all down, we really do need other people.
I have a question about that. Let's say that I ended up or somebody ended up and just totally isolated themselves. Would that not, over time, them not having anybody come in, check on them, and they just totally do things on themselves, wouldn't that hurt their health?
Well, depends on the situation. But when you talk about somebody totally isolating themselves, it could be a number of situations, and these situations do happen. For instance, a person that doesn't come out of the house. Well, you need to get outside and move in the elements, right? They talk about vitamin E. We've got a syndrome. Hi, Jennifer. Oh, she's coming in. And the more you stay inside, the more it impacts your emotional well-being. So you might end up getting depressed.
I know if I could share this as a teacher, when we had COVID going on, of course we did virtual learning, and the amount of stress and depression that happened with the kids, and there were a number of suicides. And the kids, they did not like that virtual at all. I got used to it. I was okay with it, but for the kids' benefit, because they need that social interaction. Hi, Jennifer. We are talking about friendship and the need for others. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the need for others in our lives. And I posed the question. I said, okay, if I don't go outside, I don't have nobody check on me. Would it not hurt my health?
Her sound is not on.
No, I turned it on.
Okay.
Are you referring to the need for social interaction? That's what you're saying?
Yes, the need for having somebody to talk to, and somebody to talk to us, and having some type of collaborative conversations. And if you take that away, would not it hurt our health?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we need, all of our happiness, sadness, pain comes from love. And that love. And that comes from interactions with others. That's how you love another person, right? So if that is the case, then we need to have social interaction to understand how we're feeling sometimes, to have value in our day. Just interacting with other people brings us joy. Right. People think that it's okay to, isolate themselves. Well, isolation is every bit of depression. And that's where it is rooted, because you are there with your own thoughts. There's no distraction, no support. And support drives us through anything. Mm-hmm. We can get through anything.
And when you isolate yourself, when you hear, I know over the years you've heard these, the phrase tapes in your head, or thinking there's something wrong with you, and not necessarily that it's just a natural process or a natural aspect of the developmental journey or of life's journey. I know there've been a number of times I was feeling a certain kind of way, and I'm talking about from a physical, like feeling kind of sick or whatever. And I kind of isolated myself only to talk to somebody and say, oh yeah, well, this is what's going on out here, or I remember this happened. And so if you are not interacting with anybody, you think it's something really wrong with you when it really may be something that's happening out there in the environment, or that you're the only one that this is happening to, but we're all human.
And that relatability is important too, to know that we're not alone, to know that somebody else goes through that same thing that we go through, and to gain an understanding from another person's perspectives helps us normalize what we're experiencing. And that's why it's so important to have some form of relationship and human interaction to be able to be mentally stable. It's necessary. That's why our children, I heard you guys talking about COVID and isolation that came with that. And that was the most detrimental experience, I think, for our children, in human beings in general, because the anxiety that came from that.
From being isolated and then having all of this stuff going on around you and
no control.
People are dying and wow. And so, I mean, individuals that never experienced anxiety in their life suddenly having all kind of problems. I mean, you did.
And it hasn't changed. I mean, it's gotten a little better, but that anxiety is now very much so rampant because now that feeling it has been experienced now that people don't know what to do with it. Don't know how to manage it, and then now it's an anxiety associated with other people too, because you didn't have to for so long, right? And then now I have to, then that social anxiety, and then the generation Z's and Alphas are experiencing that significantly in school. I don't know if you guys remember, like when we got back to somewhat of normal and children were going back to school, how many fights and difficulties they were having.
Right. And because one of the things, and when we talk about the social aspect of the self, when we talk about grade schoolers, and then especially those that are going to middle school, that social interaction is a big deal as far as the developmental journey for them at that particular time, because they're basically getting their experience in terms of socializing.
Yep.
And you talk about taking a year out of that, or a year and a half or so, and just say 2 years with them getting adjusted to get back in. Now, it's obvious you could do a test from an academic standpoint to know where they are academically. And they said for the math aspect of it, they're still aren't caught up. But from social interaction perspective, that's a big chunk. And I say that because one of the things that I've learned over the many years that I've been doing therapy was that somewhere between 12 and a half and 13 and a half, a child becomes a whole different person. Right. And I remember having clients, and I would tell their parents, you still have time. They hadn't reached that developmental threshold yet to where they're going to begin to define their own truth and their own beliefs and values. I said, you still got time. See, it's like the kids want to hug and kiss, and they still sit under you. By 12 and a half, 13, 13 and a half. Right? Because now they're dependent on that external locus of control, that social interaction outside the family system.
And the influences out there too.
That's right.
Is the worst.
That's right.
All of those things.
Right.
And let me ask this question that I talked about previously. Are there times in friendships where you have some type of incident with somebody you thought was one of your best friends, and then y'all leave out of friendship. Y'all not friends no more. And I've had that, but not with a best kind of friend, but I've had that with people who I thought were getting there, and all of a sudden we're not friends no more because something happened. And you talked about that's kind of the journey, Munirah. You talked about that's the journey. I still think about those people that, you know, we had some type of problem and we're not friends anymore. Do you feel a sense of loss? How do you feel about that, Jennifer?
Ooh, that had recently happened to me. So I can say my boundaries and values outweigh the hurt, but it still hurts. I think when we, you know, are growing in adulthood or in life, right? Our values we learn, we start to, you know, change what we do and the environments we want to be around. And sometimes people don't align with that. They don't grow with you, or they have differing values. And then that makes it difficult to find where your place is in that person's life. And so boundary implementation for me is what is, I think, the most pivotal thing in regards to those types of relationships. So if I have a relationship with you, we have a disagreement. Now, you do something that's hurtful to me, and I tell you, hey, I'm not okay with this. We're not going to be able to do that. And then you still continue to do it. You make no effort. Now, I know people don't do exactly what you say, you know, and remember everything. But if I see you not making an effort to respect my boundary, then yeah, we can't be friends. Like, you know, or I can make adjustments. So if I see, like sometimes my friends have some emotional difficulties, anxieties, and they're not addressing it, and I'm not their therapist. So, you know, it's a slippery slope there, but I will not go in certain spaces where I feel that I'm uncomfortable with them, but I can deal with them in other environments. And that I find what works for me in that relationship. And I implement that boundary. And then as long as you respect it, then we can remain friends. Now, if you don't, or you have ulterior motives, a lot of the times there's some underlying issues, then I have to step back. And it does hurt, because then that's a significant change, right? It's something that you are familiar with, you loved about that person, but your values can't be completely opposite, and the level of respect can't be differing so much that you can't connect with each other and respect each other, even if it's differences. Then it's time to separate. And it just takes time to find your people, I think, after those types of things happen. And you just learn. I try to learn from everybody and every experience, right? To just learn something. If it's me, if it's them, if it's us, if, you know, whatever else, I can always learn from a situation, and everyone can if we are willing to, and not necessarily beat ourselves up because it changed, because change is inevitable.
Right.
Suffering is optional.
Right. And coming from another perspective, I always like to use the Bible verse, people come into your life for a reason and a season, right? And they come, you experience, and they leave. Some come and stay for a little while, some for a little while longer, and some for a lifetime, right? But what we get from them are the lessons learned in life, right? We could say boundaries. You know, we set our boundaries because, well, we've journeyed this far with that individual. It's time for us to take a different road now. And to me, no, it's can be painful. When we talk about grief, you grieve losses, you grieve a divorce, have a car accident, lose a car, moving from one place to another. Of course, the relationships, right? So you go through a process, a grieving process. And like they say, grief never goes away. It just gets easier over time. Even though you've severed those relationships with that person, you could go back to that lesson in life and find some things where you enjoy that period or that leg of your journey.
Exactly.
right? And so now we're venturing forward. So, you know, you hit on it earlier. That's what love is, right? And I always say love unconditionally,
Mhm.
but
Is
like
that
you say,
truly a thing,
understand your boundaries.
unconditional love?
Is it truly a thing?
Pardon?
Yes, I'm honest about that. That has come up before. I mean, I don't think that is practical in the real world. That you have even for your child. You know, I was watching
Well,
Betty
when I talk
Shabal's
about,
story, ma'am.
but when I talk about unconditional love, I'm talking about that agape love. I'm not talking about love in terms of an intimate relationship between a man, a woman, or a couple, right? You know,
Well, isn't agape love you talking about maybe with a child or a parent?
I love everybody, but I have my boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I have my limits.
Mm-hmm.
I
Unconditional
have
love
places
means
I will not travel,
Yep.
but I
okay.
mean,
Well, I
but
mean, I don't use the term unconditional love to try to explain that type of relationship. I don't use that word because there's always certain conditions and things. Um,
well,
as I was saying, like the story with Betty Shabazz is she loved her daughter and she tried to do everything for her, and she loved her grandson. But her grandson had problems and situations, and he became a danger, and he did end up putting lighting a fire and putting her on fire, and that's how she passed. So you got to have you can want to love somebody deeply, but you got to have certain guards up and certain
absolutely,
things because you
absolutely.
can't just totally. No matter what you do, I'm gonna take you back. No matter what you do, I am gonna forgive you. You can't
But is
just
Right.
that
to
what
do that,
unconditional love means? Is,
ma'am.
is that really what unconditional love means?
That's what I'm
That
saying. That's what I don't use that term.
right, but I think that that's your interpretation of the word. I don't think that that's what unconditional love means.
Right.
Like for me, it's like if you make a mistake and I'm gonna love you unconditionally. I'm gonna love you even if you do something to harm me or somebody else. That don't mean I don't love you. It means that I can now determine where I allow you to be in a place in my life.
Absolutely.
Right. That doesn't mean that love disappears. It just means that, our relationship is going to be adjusted because I can love you and still not be in your life.
Absolutely.
Some kind of way we always get into an interpretation of definitions, and we always going back and forth, Jennifer.
That's all. We do. Yes,
We
I think
do,
it's
we
special.
do.
I think that's it.
But that's a beautiful thing.
I like that. I like what you said.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate you because I think we were saying the same thing.
Right.
And I get
Absolutely.
what Baruti is saying too.
Right.
It's very much so clear. Like people hurt you to the point. That's why I said at the beginning,
Right.
love and pain.
And I
With
think
it.
the thing of it is, and we kind of hit on it, right. I cut you off, Jennifer, because you
Oh,
make a
no.
good point
Go, please
when you
continue.
say love can be pain, because it hits us in the heart and it causes a response. It causes us to react in a certain way to the world.
Exactly.
And I forgot the point that I was going to make. So you continue on, Jennifer, and it'll come back because it was in response to something that
That I was
Baruti.
talking about love and pain.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Let me get this. And I was trying to say this during our last show too. It's how your thoughts on it. I think sometimes elicit a certain behavior, right? In terms of how you look at relationship. So you say, okay, well, this friend did this, that, they hurt me, and and so now you can't come around me. So it's all in attitude. Now we could take and restructure that to say, okay, I think that now, almost like with the mother and the child. I remember my son, who's older now. I used to treat him a certain kind of way. And one day he told me, he said, look, he said, but I'm grown. And after I thought about it, I said, wow, I said, he's right. Respect every sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point, we have to let our children go.
Yeah.
Right. And give them that respect. That doesn't mean that I hate him
Mm-hmm.
or I'm feeling a certain kind of way like that. Don't you talk to me like that, even though it may be times where you had, or you may have to talk to them like that. But in that instance, he was giving me the signal, okay, Mom, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I took it. And that's how I give him that respect every day now, because it registers in my head, even if I was doing it in a humorous way. But at that point in time in that conversation, it was a serious conversation. He was saying, but look, I'm grown. I have my own beliefs and values and da 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 da. Just as, and I was telling somebody this the other day, I was born and raised in the Catholic Church. We had to go to church on almost all the time, on Saturdays, midnight mass, do this for the church. I couldn't understand it because when I'm a boomer baby, and when we started going to Catholic church, they were talking in Latin. I didn't get it, but I respect my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, my family for engaging us in that activity because it provided us with the discipline, right? And in practices related to faith and belief in somebody higher than self. But when I turned 18, I said, okay, I'm not gonna go to the Catholic Church anymore. And I started looking for other churches. And now I have a church that I belong to. Now, did I throw the everything away about the Catholic Church? Absolutely not. When I would go home before my mother's death, and even now my aunt still goes, I'll go to the Catholic Church. I'll go to church with them and everything. It doesn't mean I don't believe in, I'm a Christian, but your values change. And in my life and in my household, this is what I believe and what I practice.
And what you're saying about that is a deep thing for me, and I've shared this before. You encounter situations where people met you at a certain time in your life. Let's say you were 18 and you acted in a certain way, but then they get to know you or try to get to know you again at 40 or at 60, and you're totally different, and they have a problem adjusting. I grew up I got two brothers and a sister. They're older than me. So I was always the little brother. But I'm in my 60s now, and they still want to have that kind of aura and that kind of way that they look at me, and it affects certain decisions. And so finally I had to say, hold up, wait a minute. I don't need you questioning me or asking me about this. It's deeper than that. And a whole lot of, it would be a long story to try to get into, but it's really affected our relationship. And I've encountered many people who knew you along the way and still want you to be that particular person. And it causes problems and issues. As Jennifer was saying, they don't want to adjust, or because that old person that they knew they had become comfortable in that. And it may take some work to get to know this new version. Or I've had people say, hey, I know who you are. You know, you acting this way, you acting that way. Who do you think you are? So forth, so on. And it causes problems. Have you ever had somebody that said, I know you better than yourself? Oh, I've had that happen. So friendship is, it's a road, and you got to navigate that road and so forth. And I say I got about 5 real good friends, but I got about 50 good acquaintances that I can call on. But losing one does affect me. I just wanted to share, this is Minding My Mental Health with Munirah. I appreciate the show. And we are on Facebook also, and I'm gonna check Facebook to see if there's any questions that they want to present to you all. And we're talking about friendship. And friendship is essential to the soul is the Q's motto. And that's a very important motto that I take from them all the time and so forth. But it's very important. And without friendship, it does affect you. And in this new age of the internet, it's much more difficult to, I guess, well, the friends that you have, but on the internet, you got so many different people and so many things happening. And it does, if you're not careful, it does affect how you look at things and so forth. How do you feel about that, Jennifer?
I definitely agree. I think the social media and the relationships that aren't genuine at all there, or the communications of people that are on those platforms distort our perception of reality in the first place. That it's just a fact. I mean, people show you what they want you to see. People say things that they normally wouldn't say in your face in a conversation. And I mean, just generalized perspectives about politics or religion or whatever else, because people have, they got them fingers, so they got a whole bunch of, behind the screen confidence to say things that they wouldn't say to you in their face, in your face, right? Absolutely. So I think that and people not knowing their limits and respecting other people's limits on that platform or those platforms is a real issue, but I think people don't acknowledge it as one as much, because around our ages, Facebook is the space, right, to interact with people that you hadn't seen in a long time or whatever else. And then that's where a lot of conversations happen, and then we are offended by certain things that we see, but don't have conversations with them directly, and it just causes so much, right? And go ahead. I was listening.
Yeah, I am on. I'm looking at our Facebook, and we have people listening, and they're sharing with us. And I'm checking out the questions and so forth. But friendship is very essential. How many friends over the years would you say that each of you have lost? Is it on one hand? Is it on two hands?
I don't know. I think the definition will be changed a little bit, because it's not necessarily a loss if I'm the one that made the decision to separate myself. If that makes sense to me, that word lost, is it? I mean, I decided to end, right. Or if they have, which most likely, if I didn't take accountability for something and try to mend the relationship, then it had to be something mutual. For me, that would be the case. But I would say recently, for me, probably about 3.
Let me ask this. You said sometimes you have tried to mend the relationship. I have found that some people have a difficulty saying, I'm sorry, I did wrong. I do not have that, but I do recognize that some people will take that and say, and try to manipulate with that. So I got to be careful who I apologize to and so forth. But I don't have a problem. If I feel that that other person is reciprocal and receptive, I have no problem saying, I'm sorry, I did wrong. I apologize. Please forgive me.
I agree. But you also have to know what you need in regards to an apology. For me, I need you to take accountability. Accountability for the fact that you hurt me. You tell me I'm sorry, and then I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry. That ain't gonna do. You can keep that and whatever else you got with it, because you don't respect me. You don't care that I told you, because I'm very clear when I communicate certain hurts and things like that. I'm gonna tell you. Now, if you don't feel like you did, that's your interpretation, whatever, but I'm still hurt. And I need you to take accountability for that hurt. If you can't do that, we can't be friends. It's just, that's for me. I know that, and it'll take a lot for me to get to that point, because I know where you are. I just start moving different. I tell you, well, I'm not comfortable with this. We ain't gonna hang out or whatever else. But then when you get to the point where I tell you, you hurt me directly, and you can't tell me that, I acknowledge that I hurt you, then You ain't got nothing for me, I ain't got nothing for you. And I'm okay with that, because I know if you don't have the courage enough to say to me, if I did something hurtful to you, I'm willing to take accountability if I did. But you got to tell me, because I told you, that kind of thing. So but that's something that I recently learned about myself. I can't accept I ain't mean it. That wasn't my intention. Like, regardless of whatever you felt, I'm still hurt, and I need you to acknowledge that hurt. So apologies are.
And by acknowledging, do they have to admit that they were wrong, or they just have to? Okay, they just have to really say, "Hey, I'm sorry you were hurt by that, and I didn't mean to hurt you."
But plan change after that too. That's the accountability. I did this. This is like that analogy about the egg. The egg broken in the kitchen. It wasn't in my intent to break the egg. I thought, I just dropped it. It was an accident, or I broke the egg. I broke the egg. That's what I need for you to acknowledge that this happened, and that's it. Now, after that, we can move towards plan change. Okay, well, next time you break an egg, then this is what the plan is gonna be. You're gonna have to buy another one, or whatever else. Like, or let's talk about what option we have to make that omelet that we're trying to make. Like, that is what I need, but I had to learn what that was and what that looked like for me to be able to communicate that to the people that I love and I have relationships with.
And then another scenario is, and I guess this is my therapist stuff coming out, doing an analysis, right, an assessment. But I like Oprah Winfrey's story. And her, about her mother and her growing up and how she was treated. And the conclusion that she came to was, and it wasn't only her, and it's in certain situations, because from a developmental standpoint, we have different domains in which we have to resolve challenges as we go along the developmental journey. And if you have not been exposed to, right, that particular skill at this particular level, then how can I expect that person to behave or move or think in a way that I think that they should think, or that I expect for, say, a 25-year-old to think and behave and move and respond to the world, right? So in other words,
you're not giving them a pass.
No, it's not that you can give them a pass. You give them a pass. It's that's where that agape love comes in. I understand it now from a standpoint of whether or not I'm going to deal with it. Well, it depends on where I am and what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in terms of my life.
When I say pass, now it's different with with your own child or something. You give thousands of passes, before it really gets to a level where you may have a limit on it. But I'm talking about with a peer friendship. With a peer friendship, how many passes are we going to give? How many forgivenesses are we going to give if they do the same thing or something? And they should know to a certain extent, especially after you done told them.
So the thing of it is that if you recognize it, right? So you may not recognize it for what it is until a certain point, right? And I guess that certain point is when you say, okay, I'm done with this. But again, it goes back to, let's think of it a different way. So, because like you said, it hurts. But if you think about, if you put it in perspective of, well, that person can't give me something that they don't have, that they don't understand, right? And so I have to take some responsibility in either protecting myself
Mhm.
or making a decision about this particular relationship. And it could be a friend or family,
Mhm.
You know, I got
family member. You
as I've talked about,
I've been
me
there.
and my brother, who's a different religion, and he has, you know, he's a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not, and he has a certain way of coming in, and his a certain perspective. But what he did for many years was, we having conversation, he would call me son, and I did not, you know, take it in a negative way at first. But then when other things came in to the, you know, the environment of our conversation, I said, wait a minute, he's really seeing me as less than. And,
Mhm.
you know, I'm in my 50s and 60s at this time, and he's really seeing me as less than. And until that came to my mind and my understanding, I said, okay, he was really being disrespectful intentionally, in my opinion, with that. And at that time, I start calling it out, and I say, wait a minute,
how old is he?
don't talk to me in that particular way. And
Ask him.
it became and of course he never still apologized about that.
But
He never apologized about that. And other things came up also. And, you know,
But how old was your brother? And then Jennifer's got a question.
well, my brother's only 6 years older than I am.
Okay.
Only, that's respect. That's almost that's a whole nother cohort. But Jennifer,
Yes, but we were all in our 50s when that, you know, I might have been 50 something when that started, or 40 something when that started. And because it went on for a long time until I realized that's the way he looked at me in that context.
But did you realize
I got
that
kids
from
of my
his
own and so forth. Go
words?
ahead, Jennifer.
What did you realize that from his words though? Did he say, like, did you tell him this is offensive to me that you saying this? And
It took me about 20 years before I said it was offensive.
what was his response?
He really never had a direct response, you know, never apologized, didn't have a direct response about
But I
that.
mean, it sounds like he didn't understand that it was a problem because you allowed it to happen for so long, right?
I agree with that also. I agree with that also, and I take that into understanding. But there were other factors involved where it came to an understanding that there's a disrespect. See, in the beginning, I didn't take it as a disrespect. I just took it as his way and the way he was carrying himself.
Yeah.
But over time, I understood, or at least it came to me, that it was really a disrespect. And because of other things that happened. And I would have to go into the story.
But did you ask him what he meant by that?
Huh?
Did you directly just ever ask, like, why do you say that? Like, what does that mean to you? Why are you saying that to me? Why are you calling me that?
And
I never, but eventually I just finally say, hey man, I'm not your son. Don't talk to me in that manner. Eventually I got to that point because I got pissed, I got upset about other things.
But it sounds like you personalized and interpreted it, and it could have been in a way.
It got hot, and it's still bad. It's still bad.
Because guess what? Because you internalized it in a certain way
because of other things.
Your interaction with him was always impacted by that energy. And so
there were times over a 20-year period where, you know, he would come, he would help me with certain things. I would help him with certain things. He helped me more. He's the older brother. I say, hey man, my father went out. Can you come help me? He would come and help me. He would help me with this thing. He would help me with that thing. But today I say, I don't want you to help me with nothing because it didn't go to your head and you think I'm your, you know, you don't have respect. and
But,
I can't
but
ask you to
really,
help me with
did you
anything.
ask him? Did he mean it? This is the thing, and I keep asking you that because I think that's your interpretation based on the experiences. We all have those. Those are called schemas, right? Like you experience something, you hear him, you related to a situation, then you determine that it's disrespectful. But that doesn't mean that he meant that completely.
I did not believe that he meant it disrespectfully for the
Mhm.
first 15 years
He
until
probably did.
other factors
Uh,
happened.
I hear.
The other factors happened,
Did you hear
and
me?
I said, wait a minute. This is the way he actually sees me.
But
in my opinion.
see, that's where I'm struggling at because
Okay.
it's your experience that made you come to that conclusion, but you didn't directly talk to him about why he says that. And when you did bring it to him, you came to him aggressively. Stop calling me that, man. And you ain't never said that before. Then he gonna defend himself. He's gonna be defensive, and then that's why y'all got into an argument, right?
I agree with you on all of that, Jennifer. I agree, but it's gotten to the point of almost no return. However, by the fact that I'm bringing it up, I would like, and I got to have my sister in also. I mean, my older sister, same type of problem. Now I got an older brother, my oldest brother. Me and him, we can talk. We cool and so forth. But those two, I have an issue with them. And now you got to factor in they're Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm not. They believe that they have the truth. They believe I'm on the outside, and that makes me not as good, as worthy, so forth, so on. And that's in their mindset. If you know anything about the Jehovah's Witness
I
faith,
know. I have a lot of
way that they carry themselves.
So you see how things compound.
Yes.
And it all goes back. You ever heard this thing? Well, they've been like this for so long, they don't even remember what they're mad about. Right? And so here we on this 15-year journey, and we're actually stuck in some point in time in that developmental journey, but we think we're moving forward.
And not at all.
And we really haven't, not as far as this relationship is concerned. And the other aspect of it is it impacts all of the relationships, right? Because you hadn't dealt with the root of the issue. It wasn't cleared up then. And really, when you think about it, it's, and I don't want to minimize how you're feeling about it, but it's really not a big deal when you look at the bigger scheme of things.
I agree with that. It's just I can't have a relationship with my brother and sister, you know, because they will never admit any wrong, any that they did any hurt.
Is that what you need, Baruti?
They would never admit that.
Is that what you need?
Of course, I would like that. Yes. Okay. I would like that. I would like them to admit that they did wrong. I asked my brother one time, have you done anything that was wrong? And he did say, I am an imperfect servant of God, so I have done some wrong. But I of course, I didn't know that certain things that I did would offend. That's the closest he got to an apology. However, I had to be the one to bring that conversation forward by asking the question. He never approached me. Of course, you want the person to say, reach out to you to say, hey, what's the problem? What did I do wrong or something like that? You don't want to have to be the one to just go in and ask them and so forth. However, I did.
If the relationship is as important as you are communicating it is, I think it'll be important for you to take that step so that you can get what you need and they can get what they need, or some closure. Because you wouldn't be talking about it this long if it didn't matter, right? It's important. And I think that miscommunications happening. I think jumping to conclusions, the religious aspects, all of that is getting in the way of you just being brother and sister. And I think that is what, like Minerva said, the root. The root of it is, regardless of what religion we are, whatever we believe differently, we got the same blood in us. And I want to love my sibling. And so if you just put your pride down a little bit and be like, hey, brother, this hurt me when you did this, and allow him to say whatever he said, then you receive that, you did your part to resolve that relationship. And then after that, that's on them. But you can't expect him to know what you are feeling if you don't communicate what that feeling is. And it has to be clear to not just what you jump to a conclusion about, what your expectation is, but just clearly saying, this is what I'm feeling. It hurt me. It hurt me. And you not acknowledging it hurts me. And that's what I need from you so we can be together as siblings and love each other.
I hear you. I agree with you. In a perfect world, that would be great. However, with my siblings, when this first of all, it's deeper than that. I didn't go to my dad's funeral because I said I was gonna get up and speak at the funeral, and they said if I do, because it's outside of the Jehovah's Witness tradition, they were gonna have the police try to arrest me.
I hear you.
That's how deep it is. And of course, we almost came to blows because of that.
That's
so it's deep. Now, I sat down and wrote. I write my expressions. I wrote a 5-page paper and put it on the wall of my parents' house. And so everybody who came in the house had to see that. And when I got sick recently, my brother, because I was sick and I was out for 3 days, and anybody who tried to come visit me, he screamed, and if he didn't approve them, he didn't let them see me or communicate. And of course, I didn't find this out until after I got better and got out, because his friends are not my friends. And my friends so he wants to qualify who's good and bad in my life, and that's not acceptable. But
have you talked to him since?
Ma'am?
Have you talked to him since?
I talked to him recently, but another event happened that I don't have time to go into.
It's trauma or upsets or whatever else. But I think that what you just said needs to be communicated, and what you need from your brother. I need you to respect me for me. I respect you for you. Let's love each other. And when we have limits, let's communicate them so we can respect each other. That's it.
I'm going to just use that. I'm going to say that. Now, that's harder. He might be okay with that. That's harder with my sister, because if I say that, she'll say, well, you should say the right thing in the first time. And she doesn't admit anything. She doesn't admit that she did anything in any way, and always tries to point it back to me. However, we are all in our 60s now. So, but these things are not just in family, they're in friendships and relationships too. Now, in friendships, you don't go to all of these different things because you cut it off before it gets to this point.
Okay. You see?
Ma'am?
There you go again.
Where I go again, what?
You don't get there in friendships because you cut it off.
I don't necessarily cut it off.
The vernacular that you use in how you see and deal with relationships is important. So we're talking cognitive restructuring here, because then that will ultimately impact or change the way that you look at relationships and how we interact.
I do a self-evaluation. I always ask, did I do something? Did I cause something?
Did you ask the other person? That's where you be like. I understand you might do a self-evaluation, but you're not in a relationship with yourself. You have one with yourself, but the problem in the relationship has to do with another person. So you got to get their perspective and be open enough to respect their boundary if you are. And if not, then you can make a decision on what that relationship looks like thereafter. But if you don't communicate it, that can't happen. And that's why the relationships end up being cut off. Because you don't feel like you're heard, but you're not saying it, and then you're not asking them, and then they're not able to join with you to find what works for you two together.
And cut off is saying, okay, I'm done with this. So so it's an attitude, right, which has an impact on your overall psychological fortitude as it relates to relationships. So now you cut everybody off, you running on half.
No. I don't cut everybody off. I talk to try to figure out what the problem is. Just like I'm doing here, I try to talk. Some people won't let the conversation happen. Now, it's different with my brother, different with my sister. I would try a little bit. Of course, there's friendships. People don't want to allow the conversation of healing to happen. And you have no choice but to step back on that. But with my brother and sister, for instance, you know, they want to decide, and of course, nobody can decide for me who is good and bad for me in my life and so forth, so on. And of course, I don't think a friend would necessarily try that if they're a real friend. Now, they may say, hey, this is how I feel, but you know, you got to do what you think is best for you. But, and then, well, it's a whole lot to it. But I understand, and let me just say, I am not one that easily cuts off friendships. I would not be able to have all the friends that I have and the associates that I have and have built with, especially in the process of having the shows and everything else. That's not who I am. I'm one who will apologize and will say, I'm sorry. And that's not something that people normally do in this day and age. So, but go ahead, yes.
Oh, I didn't want to cut you off. It's at 52 now. I just want you to check and see if maybe somebody had a question or a comment. And we can continue this. Jennifer, let's meet again.
Well, you said we're going to have the show once a month. So I gave you a number of dates, and we'll talk about that.
Even though when I got in today, I just wanted to go to sleep. But
me too, because I had some bitter drill. But I'm alert now because he got me interested.
But Rudy woke you up, huh?
Yeah, he woke me up.
That's a part of what I do. When I first started doing shows, I was, shy and so forth, only express myself in writing, but it's helped me. And I am not one that cuts people off. I very much value friendship, and it hurts me when somebody does not want to be my friend anymore. It hurts me.
I hear that, but I think why,
what can I do?
More,
ma'am?
I think the problem for you in those relationships is just you communicating what's okay with you and what's not, and vice versa. And I think that's where you're lacking. And that's why it gets to those points of hurt, because you don't understand, but it's because you didn't communicate it really with the other person.
And you repeat, and the same thing repeats itself over and over and over, and you're getting deeper and deeper because you've already got again, you're stuck there. When we talk about the developmental journey, this is a Ericksonian thing, where they say you have to resolve these challenges to move on.
I think y'all are wrong. I do communicate. I'm sorry. I think y'all are wrong. Y'all don't know me, but I gave you one scenario with my brother.
We know you're a human being. And we know that you have you are on this journey in the universe, just like all of us human. And we know that we all are human beings, but we have our individual differences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's just like a lot of people talked about Sigmund Freud, but he sure did give us a lot of insight into the developmental journey in terms of how we move about.
Yeah,
Right.
but the id, the
They
ego, and
use
all that
it.
stuff, you know, that's kind of obvious.
Huh?
The Sigmund Freud, the id, the ego, and all of that stuff that he was talking
No,
about, those are obvious things if you be honest about it.
there we're talking about the personality part of it. I'm talking about the developmental aspect of it,
parents,
because he was a stage therapist as
Mhm.
well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he gave insight into the mind in terms of the id, ego, superego, but he also got into the step or stages of development and the various tasks that, and then you got Erickson and Maslow and Piaget and others that
I'm an
studied
expert in
other
Maslow's
aspects.
hierarchy of needs. I double check those all the time. I was a
No.
teacher for 30 years, Jennifer.
But you know what? You can
You're
relate
not
it all.
talking to nobody who just don't know nothing. I know a little bit.
But see,
I can
that's
teach a
probably
little
what you
bit.
think your brother saying. And because Minerva said nothing like that. We didn't say you don't know nothing. Nobody said that. We know you're very intelligent.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you understand the gist of what effective relationships look like and what you have to do within them.
Absolutely. We respect your skills of getting us out here on Facebook.
That's right.
And with these shows.
Mm-hmm.
But we understand relationships from a developmental perspective. And not only that, all of this stuff is in the Bible. Even though the Bible was written by man, there are a lot of
I'm so glad you said
life's lessons that are detailed in the Bible, you know, because it's myths, it's analogies, it's poetry, but the whole thing is about relationships.
There's a very powerful scripture we toward the end where it says, Corinthians 15:45, I believe. The first is not that which is spiritual, it's that which is physical, but the spiritual is all around. And it has a great meaning to me. You remember the scripture, but what it's saying is, in my opinion, that man in his lower mind, he looks at and understands the physical part, and we react to the physical, but we have the spiritual all around us that we can live, move, and have our being in. Don't get me started on that too. I've read the Bible 3 times. So,
yes.
But one thing I want to say about that, just in general, what Minerva said is that it was written by man. So that means that when it's communicated, church, wherever you are reading it, it's based on interpretation. Right, and that's based on what your experiences are and what you believe and all that. And that's what I've been saying to you this entire time, Baruti. We all have experiences. And based on that, we form schemas, thoughts about how things should go, expectations, XYZ. And because of that, certain things can be misinterpreted if we don't communicate them effectively to the people that we are in relationships with. And that was the gist of everything.
I've had that experience too. But I try to go to the next level and try to communicate clearly if I'm given the chance. Sometimes I'm not given the chance.
But I know your interpretation because you said what you said a minute ago, when that is not what Minerva was communicating. You're telling me and her how many years of education and experience in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That was based on your interpretation, you thinking because we are therapists or whatever, that we are saying that you don't know something, when that's not what we're communicating. We're just identifying what may be the problem. And that's what I mean by the interpretation.
Or a different way to look at relationships that would possibly allow you to move on in your journey without the burden
Mhm.
of missing that love
Mhm.
that you desire from your family.
Mhm. Ooh. Mm.
I hear you. Now I'll say this because we're right at the end. I am very open to learn. I'm very open, especially about friendships and relationships. I'm not perfect, but I do get along with my ex-wife and my kids,
Very good.
and that's very important.
Because guess
We
what?
always get along, but
That's
today we get along great. And
Mhm.
there's still work to be done, but I would like to have good relationships with everybody who is in my circle.
Yeah.
So I would like to, and that's a goal of mine. I do the best I can.
And
This,
I love
go
and
ahead.
I love my sister, and we get along well, but sometimes we don't like each other.
Mm. I'm not
So-
talking to mine. It's been years.
So
But
no
very close.
relationship, right? So like we said earlier, even it could be a family member or a friend.
Yep.
Like you've got friends, Rudy, that's like family.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
do.
I do,
I've
for
got
sure.
friends that's like family.
They are family, mine.
Uh-huh. And so that is where going all the way back to the beginning with Jennifer, where we set our boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? On our journey,
Yep.
We all have a
learn
need
what we
for
will
love.
tolerate and what we won't in terms, like for this show. I was late the first time, and Rudy he sent me this text message and told me that he put a lot of work into this.
Oh,
And he
that's
don't
right.
tolerate
That's a clear
being
boundary.
late. And
Ooh.
this was a warning because the next time I'm not gonna let you do it. I said, oh, woo. Well, I respect that.
You know what? When people clearly say what was important to them.
I respect it.
Yes.
And I got out here before he did today.
Look at you.
But
That's great.
that's just, and it goes back to respect for other people's gifts.
And needs.
Uh-huh.
All of those. Yep.
Right.
Hey, this has been a great show. We're right at 10 o'clock. I will text both of you the exact date of the next show. And I think this is a good thing. This is the first episode of Minding Mental Health with Sister Munirah. And it's a good, having a show about mental health is very important in this day and age. It's such a stigma mental health has. I've shared all my life. I've had either vicarious or indirect mental health things or direct issues of mental health. And I'm okay talking about it now. I'm okay. But what I have realized is, hey, we all go through things sometimes, but the more you talk about it, the more you're honest with yourself, and you work on it, hey, things can be okay. And, you can share with others what you've been through, and it's all good. And you can move forward. So I thank you, ladies. Any final comments y'all want to share? Who you are, what you're doing?
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. I am with Jennifer Cain. I own a practice. I actually have 3 additional therapists that work with me. And we focus on EMDR, somatic therapy, to address traumas. My favorite, I guess, mental disorder or difficulty that we all have, anxiety, is my specialty, I'll say. And I really found my family in my clients, as far as I'm able to learn from them, and hopefully they learn something from me, and we all can grow and learn. And so that makes my life more valuable. And I'm also doing herbal medicine now. Because I did it for myself, because I'm diabetic, and I was really sick, and I've started taking herbs and it's changed my life. So I gotta go make my golden milk in a minute. But that has, I just being willing to learn and try different things and find what works. Even though, sometimes as Black folks, we a little closed-minded because we want to do what we think we know, but now we
Right.
have to learn different things. So yeah. I can be contacted at adorncounseling.com. That's my website. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. And I really appreciate the conversation today. It was great. And thank you for letting me call you out so many times early. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. If I was on your therapist couch, you would probably kick me out because I would ask so many questions and go back and forth.
No, I wouldn't. I like that.
Oh, okay. All
Because
right.
I learned something, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You
Yes,
got to be
ma'am.
open to learning.
But Rudy's a different kind, though.
Oh, I know.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite books in my journey into the profession, and it is called The Finest Hour. And that's where what is his name? John Colson asked all of these experienced therapists what was their most life-changing interaction with clients. And
Sounds interesting.
such a wonderful book.
Hopefully they got an audio version. I don't like to read like that.
I don't know. I think I got it at an ACA conference probably about maybe 15 years ago, but it's probably still out there, but it's called The Finest Hour. Could probably write one now myself. Because our clients do, my point is our clients do change us and impact us. And it's a relationship that we had. And I have to be honest, over the COVID pandemic, I had my first panic attack. So I had to back off a little bit because it was too much.
It was a lot.
Because we're energy beings and we're sharing that energy and we're human.
And we were in that.
And we're impacted by the world. That's what I tell my students. We're impacted by the world just like anybody else.
Yep.
And so not only are we working with them based on our lived experiences, in addition to our education and training, we have lived experiences too. So we can relate. So it's really an energy exchange, right? And we know when we can't, in speaking to what Rudy was saying, you probably would have thrown me out. Well, sometimes there are some clients that we have to let go.
Yep.
Because it's an exchange of energy. We don't gel with them and they don't, or they don't gel with us.
You can't do the work. You can't help them if
that's right. And so we have to make a decision. Well, perhaps I can refer you to somebody else. Or they'll get mad at you and not come back.
Yep.
But at first I would feel kind of bad about that, but not anymore.
Oh, I don't know more either.
Not anymore. Good. That might save somebody from dinging my record. But for the most part, it's a rewarding profession.
For sure.
And we still are waiting to get our full due respect as therapists, because that's what we do, is therapy.
Yep.
And because people don't understand what do professional counselors do. We do therapy.
That's right.
We help you, and we help you elevate your psychological fortitude. Because we know that you're coming to us because you're almost on empty now and you need a refill. And we can help you if you're open to
work. Yep.
Do the work. Right.
You want to share how people can get in touch with you or anything like that?
Well, I kind of do crisis intervention type stuff. So I consult a little bit. I do a little one-on-one. I take a client here and there, but I have a job. But I did run a private practice for about 15 years, and I still do a little bit of And I still do private practice, but,
And I just want to share, if there's people out there that want to talk to you all or get in touch, they can get in touch with me, and I will refer them to you.
absolutely.
And if they want to know, I'll let them know.
Right. Because I usually take kind of high functioning clients at this time. Because I don't have time to really deal with the severely emotionally challenged clients at this time. I have to everything focused on my other stuff. I do research and writing and things like that. But I love doing therapy. And so I do take on clients from time to time.
All right. Well, thank you, Munirah. Thank you, Miss Jennifer. Thank you. We'll continue the conversation on the next show. I have to look it up when it's planned. I'll text both of you when the next show is. Minding our mental wellness.
Yes.
Very important, minding our mental wellness.
Yes.
Sundays, 9 p.m. And once a month, maybe we'll increase the time down the line sometime, but once a month right now. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody out there. Contact me and I'll contact them for you. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.